Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Ignorant Intellectual on Media. Today, I thought we'd do our second video on a thrift store haul. I went around the city. Actually, I've gone twice over the last week or two, so I have actually two to do, but I'll do the first one today, and maybe I'll do the next one in a couple days from now, um, just to catch up to the other videos that I've done. I've done a few more like mixed sale hauls or private sales, that kind of thing. So I thought maybe I would take a trip last week and this week to the different thrift stores, usually around four of them, but we've got a bunch in the city that I live in. So there's always thrift stores to go to, and you always find stuff. I've noticed sometimes in other videos from other you know uh, creators or whatever, the thrift stores kind of dry up for what they want, but not in the ones that I go to. I always seem to grab at least a couple of things, but maybe my city's just more lucky that way. Maybe people are more generous in their donations. I'm not sure. Anyway, so I thought this one will be the second episode in these series of videos, and let's hop right into it. Let's see what we got. So what it is: one, two, three, four, five. We got 6 CDs and four movies on DVD. So I don't think this will take too long. All right, just to see what is around these days in the thrift stores in my city. Okay, first CD is Chet Baker. All right, if you know Chet Baker, the trumpeter, the jazz trumpeter. This is the Italian sessions. This is a session that he went in Italy. He went into a studio with a bunch of musicians: Bobby Jasper, Rennie Thomas, Amanda Tomasi, um, Amandio Tomasi, Benoit Curson, and Daniel Homar. All played anything from the sax, the flute, the guitar, piano, bass, and drums, respectively. So, so it's almost a full orchestra, small orchestra, 4 or 5 guys, and Chet Baker is hit and miss. All right, with his stuff. Okay, so the reason why he's hit and miss is because he had a very bad drug addiction. And so some of the stuff that he did is not really up to snuff. But this stuff, this one is very good. And like I said, done in an Italian studio in 1962, and basically it covers a whole bunch of music by other artists. Like for example, he does "Well You Needn't," which is a Thelonious Monk song. He did "Barbados," which is a Charlie Parker song. He did "Pent Up House," which is a Sonny Rollins song. All right, so "Blues in the Closet," which is an Oscar Pettiford song. So there's no originals on this, but if you like trumpet and you like jazz, Chet Baker has to be taken seriously, right? I mean, he's not um, Miles Davis or anything, but he is up there. And what attracted me to him was less his trumpet and more his voice, because he has a really haunting, sad, sad voice when he sings. So you can find like anything with his vocals on it. Do so. Like Chet Baker Sings is probably the most famous one out of them all, but this one is a good example of what he can do when he's like clear headed or whatever, right? So that's Chet Baker, the Italian Sessions, if you can find it, or even go on Spotify. Maybe it's there. I'm not sure. I'd have to check that. So, all right. So that's Chet Baker. If you like jazz, all right, hard bop especially, that's what it's called. Next up is another jazz kind of rhythm and blues, soul type of musician, Nina Simone, who's I don't even think you can put arguably in front of it. Arguably the greatest jazz artist, uh, female jazz artist ever. It's very difficult to. Who else? Who else is there? She's got to be the best, right? And my introduction to her was on Point of No Return. Remember that film with Bridget Fonda? Was based on the Luc Besson film, Nikita. Anyway, she liked when she was in a room, she liked to play Nina Simone, and ever since then, back in when was that, early '90s, I was hooked on Nina Simone. And this is a great. If you can find this, pick this up. This is great. This is a great double album on CD, right? So it has "To Love Somebody," which is her 1969 album, and "Here Comes the Sun," which is a 1971 album, and it's got a slip cover to it, which is it's not as white as it probably was when it was first bought, and that's because the person didn't protect their media and put it in a plastic bag. And so what happens? Like I said, anything with paper in it gets damaged. See that right there? I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but it's frayed. And look, it's browning over time. You look on the inside, it's really brown. So you need to protect your media if you want to keep it white. So this is what it would have looked like. This is just a thing that I bought from compare the compare the color, right? So, but if you would have put that in a plastic bag, it wouldn't look like this probably till three times the amount of time has gone by. Anyway, so this was put out in 2002, but the albums are 1969 and 1971. And uh, here's a picture of the two albums. Okay, this is the two albums on the back. You can see them. Actually, there's a better way of doing this. So both of the albums fit on one CD. Okay, the CD's in great shape, and here's the booklet that's inside. Right, and it's a beautiful booklet. There's a great picture of Nina Simone, a young Nina Simone, back when she was doing these two albums. All right, and there's the album cover of one, which is "To Love Somebody." All right, that's the front cover of the album, of the LP, and that's the back of the LP, and that's the front cover of I forget what was called. Here Comes the Sun. There's the front cover of Here Comes the Sun, and there's the back cover of Here Comes the Sun. And then it has an essay on the two albums and what their importance are, and then a track listing, right? So it's nice. It's a well put together package, and I found this for $2. All these CDs that I'm showing you, I got in the thrift store for $2 each, so it's not a bad price. You can find better sometimes. The thing about the thrift stores where I live, the thrift stores are usually more expensive to buy stuff than private sales. Like, for example, you can go on, Kijiji or uh, Facebook Marketplace and find DVDs, mainstream and even not so mainstream DVDs for $1 or less usually. All right. Sometimes you might pay $2 if you're really looking for something and it comes across um, your view and it's a more rare thing. I mean, not the, you know, you got to separate uh, the rarer and the less rare, but also by the boutique labels, right? So the boutique labels will put out stuff and charge you an arm and a leg for it, whereas if you can find the more mainstream DVD or Blu-ray of that, you'll pay like a third of the price, right? So, and if you get it used, you're going to pay $1 or two. All right. So, and CDs you can get for less than $1 a lot of the times on Facebook Marketplace and that, right? So $2 for a CD, um, is not as cheap uh, usually like on Facebook Marketplace. I mean, there are people that sell CDs on Facebook Marketplace for $4 or $5, that kind of thing. But most people are trying to get rid of their collection, so they'll sell them for $1, or they'll put like 150 CDs up and they'll sell it for $50, that kind of thing, right? So you can usually get them for $1 or less. But if you go into the thrift stores, the minimum you're paying around where I live is $2, right? So all these CDs that I'm showing you I got for $2. But you know that that is worth $2, okay? And this is definitely worth $2, especially if you like. I mean, my favorite instrument in jazz is the sax, not the trumpet. I find the trumpet a bit too high. I like the lower feel of a sax, but with Miles Davis and with Chet Baker, you listen to them, and the trumpet is just as good as the saxophone in those two cases, right? So um, it's worth $2. And for example, here's the third CD. It's one of the Rolling Stones' greatest albums of all time, and it's called Sticky Fingers. Came out in 1971. It has like Brown Sugar, Wild Horses. Um, I Got the Blues, Sister Morphine. Great songs by this band. And this is up there with Beggar's Banquet and Let It Bleed and those albums, right? So this is one of their great albums. I already have this on CD, but it was like $2 to pick it up, and I'll end up giving it to a friend if they don't have it or whatever, or sell it, right? So um, it's a it's a great album, and I don't really have to talk much about the Rolling Stones. They're great. I know they're great. We've been listening to their music for God, like 60 years, 50, 60 years. So but if you are young and you don't know the Rolling Stones, because it's dad rock, right? You know what I mean? It's funny how pejorative that thing sounds. It's not classic rock anymore. It's dad rock, right? So, um, if you want to delve into some dad rock, all right, this one, Beggar's Banquet, and Let It Bleed by the Rolling Stones are probably their three best albums. So start with those and just expand from there. So this is one of them. This is what it looks like. Okay. All right. Next up is Nick Drake. If you haven't heard of Nick Drake, wouldn't be surprised. But if you like sad music, if you like depressing music, if you like music that will hurt your heart, right? That you're just in a depressive mood. You don't want to be around anybody, so you're going to put on some music and self commiserate or whatever. This guy is one of the best for that. All right, and his name is Nick Drake. And the reason why that is because he was like depressed all of his life, and he actually ended up swallowing a whole bunch of antidepressant drugs and killing himself at the age of 26. But before he did that, he put out three albums. Now this came out in 1994. This is a good compilation of his stuff, but he only had three albums. All right, and you know what I say about uh, people that put out you know compilations? They're just for the record companies to make money without having to put out any new stuff, right? So um, this is a perfect example of that, since he only has three albums. So I would suggest, I mean, you can pick this up, see if you like him. That way you're not spending, um, well, no, I can't even say that. If you want to pick this up, it's good, but it's better to pick up his three albums, or even just one of them, because, well, in fact, this probably isn't too bad. See, I'm changing my mind now, but the reason why I think people shouldn't put out compilation albums or best of albums until they do five albums, if you've heard me say that before, is because there's just not enough good songs. Usually, artists, when they put out albums, I mean, you get the upper echelon of musicians where every one of their songs on their albums are just good or really good, right? And they could have chose any ones to put out as singles, because usually you put out an album. I mean, back in the day before streaming or whatever, you put out an album and maybe you choose two or three songs off that album to put out as singles, so that the radio will pick them up and play them on the radio, and it'll popularize your album, and people will go buy your album, right? Um, so, but with Nick Drake, he's one of the upper echelon guys that are like that. So basically, every one of his albums is almost like a greatest hits album. You can't really differentiate. See, ignorant intellectual can't talk, right? Between good songs and bad songs on his three albums. Okay, so his three albums are Five Leaves Left. That was his first album. Came out in 1969. All right, it's got a green cover. Okay. Um, Second one was called Brighter Later, and I think it came out in 1971. All right. And the third album was Pink Moon. It came out in 1972. So Five Leaves Left, Brighter Later, except Brighter is Bryterlayter. So Brighter Later. All right. And then Pink Moon. All right. So pick up any one of those three albums. Let's see if you like Nick Drake, or you can pick up this this one if you wish. I just picked this up because I'm going to resell it because I know I can get like $4 or $5 for it, and I bought it for two, right? So so you can pick this up, but he only had three albums, so you might as well pick up one of his albums, and every one of his songs are good on every one of his albums, right? But he was never successful as an artist. He only became successful in like the mid to late '90s, if I remember correctly, after his death. You know what I mean? So he put out stuff in the '60s and '70s, early '70s, late '60s, and he wasn't very successful, and that just made his depression worse, and that might have been the reason why he overdosed or whatever, right? Was that he just if he wasn't going to be successful. But the thing about it is because of his depression, he never really did much touring and get out in the public eye. He was a very private guy, right? So his music, I guess, wasn't strong enough to carry him into stardom, where he would become more financially successful or whatever. I mean, uh, he didn't like the public spotlight, and then you wonder why he wasn't successful, because his music is good. You know what I mean? So after his death, and in the '90s, for some reason, there was a resurgence on his three albums, and they became very popular in the late '90s to the early 2000s, if I remember correctly, because that's when he came across my radar. Was in the late '90s. Wasn't in the '70s. All right, you never heard any of his music on the radio. You never heard anybody talk about him. But when the '90s came about, I'm not sure how that. Maybe some critic, championed him, and then he started becoming more in the public eye. His albums, anyways. But pick up his three albums, or you can pick up this. I guess this has 16 of his songs. So, each of his albums has like, 10 to 12 songs, 10 songs. So around 30 songs, and you get 16. So you got about half of his music here. But like I said, this is all off his first three albums. So, but if you like sad, depressing music that has, accompaniment, but some of them is just him and his guitar, and he has a very, very, very haunting voice. Okay, it's a very haunting voice, and if you haven't heard of him, try him out. You will not be disappointed. Okay, all right. So next up is another album like the Rolling Stones. It came out in 1973, and it came out after Led Zeppelin 4, but before Physical Graffiti, and it's called, what is it called? That Houses of the Holy. See, slipped my head. Ignorant intellectual. And this is the album that has the song Remains the Same, the Rain Song, Over the Hills and Far Away, um, No Quarter. This is the album that had that on it. All right. And this is one of their least successful albums. Back in '73, it wasn't. Led Zeppelin 4 was a smash, and this one was kind of a disappointment. But not anymore. I mean, when you collect Led Zeppelin, you collect those first four albums, you collect this one, you collect. The only one you actually may not want to collect is Coda, which is a whole bunch of, throw offs or whatever. So, um, but every one of their albums is one of the greats, and I would put a lot of their albums in my top lists, right? And it's another dad rock album. So if you like hard rock, I mean, these guys are basically the poster child for hard rock. These guys in AC/DC are the two bands that are, you know, the poster childs for hard rock. You like blues rock, you get the Rolling Stones. You like pop rock, you'll get the Beatles. But if you like hard rock, you'll get AC/DC and Led Zeppelin. All right, both dad rock albums, I guess. Dad rock bands they are now, right? All right. So next up is a 1987 album by uh, one of the most successful underground, maybe if you could call it that, recording artists of all time that can't sing. All right, and that is Tom Waits, and this is his album Frank's Wild Years, and this is basically, if I remember correctly, he wrote a play called Frank's Wild Years, and then he did this kind of like a soundtrack to it. Um, so uh, I haven't listened to this one. This one is on one of my flash drives, but I haven't listened to it yet. So the ones that I have listened from Tom Waits, I listened to some of his compilation of some of his early stuff, and but his albums in the '80s, like Swordfish Trombones, or what was the other one there where they're kind of hugging on the cover? Um, Rain Dogs. All right, so Swordfish Trombones and Rain Dogs are probably his two best albums. All right, or at least critically wise, yes. And he's got this. See, he can sing without the scruffiness in his voice if he wishes, but he does that kind of scruffiness in his voice as a on purpose to make his music sound more unique or whatever, right? He's kind of like a he's kind of more jazz than anything, like a rough kind of jazz with his rough voice. I wonder if he can speak after he does a session, like because he gets down there with that really scratchy type of voice that um, it takes you a while to get used to him to singing that way because his earlier stuff, his voice, he didn't get it all gruff and everything. He was more, his natural voice. He wasn't like doing like a Louis Armstrong, how Louis Armstrong as well did it. He kind of, he did that kind of unique type of voice. He manipulated his voice. If he would just sing naturally, Tom Waits wouldn't have such a scratchy voice. But he does it on purpose because it sounds kind of cool, right? And is there anybody more cool than Tom Waits when it comes to music? You tell me. All right, so this came out in 1987. I haven't listened to it yet. Have you heard it? What do you think of it? All right, so those are the CDs. All right, now we're gonna. I went to a thrift shop and I found this. All right, so it's called Sam Peckinpah's The Legendary Western Collection. Now, Sam Peckinpah is one of the great directors, American directors. He his reputation is on violence. All right, a lot of his films were more violent than his his compatriots in the film industry. All right, so he got known for having very violent and visceral films, right? Like The Wild Bunch or Straw Dogs are two perfect examples. Now, The Wild Bunch is in this, so this is four of his westerns. All right, uh, in the '60s and '70s. All right. Now, I always tell you about. I'll speak about that in the end. All right. So basically, you have Ride the High Country. All right. You have the Ballad of Cable Hogue. All right. And you have his most famous uh, film, which is The Wild Bunch. All right. And then you have Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, which is not even opened yet. All right. So the person who bought this new didn't even get to uh, the fourth film. He only watched the first three, I guess, or at least opened the first three. All right. Um, so Peckinpah is great. You should collect Peckinpah. If you don't know much about him, you should pick him up. All right. Um, the Criterion Collection has Straw Dogs in it. Maybe you look for that one as well. But he was he's one of the big names in the westerns, and his westerns were kind of a little bit more violent than other people's westerns, right? So you have Ride the High Country, all right, which is about these three guys: Randolph Scott, Joe McCree, all right. These three guys are taking gold from a gold mine down into the town, right? And there's a whole bunch of intrigue involved in that because the last time any of the workers brought gold down into town, they were murdered for their gold, right? So the gold company hires Randolph Scott to bring that gold down safely or whatever, and so he asks his buddy to accompany him, all right? And his buddy had a younger man he was mentoring, who also came. Now these two guys, if I'm touching them correctly, these two guys, he's a good friend of his, but he decides he's going to rob. Um, he's going to take this gold from the gold company, and he's going to try to convince his friend, who was hired by the gold company, to to take the gold with him. And if he doesn't, well, he's going to betray him with his sidekick here, right? All right. So that's the intrigue of this film. And I've seen that one. I've seen The Wild Bunch, and both of them are very good. All right. I have not seen this one, and I have not seen Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. But this one is a very good film. And I watched Straw Dogs, and I think this was the second one that put me on to Sam Peckinpah and started collecting him as a director because I really love westerns. Of course, I love all genre films, but westerns are, there's so many westerns that you can watch, and all of them are really good, right? So, well, most of them, anyways. And this is one of them, all right? So that's called Ride the High Country. Now, the Ballad of Cable Hogue, all right, is kind of like a calm Sam Peckinpah. It just tells like 3 years in the life of a gold prospector who has failed at his craft. All right, and uh, it's like one of his more tame films. So I haven't seen it yet. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Is one of Peckinpah's worst films? What do you think? All right, and now The Wild Bunch, which is his best film probably, or his most well known, and it's basically about a gang, a group of like a bunch of guys, including you know uh, William Holden, Ernest Borgnine, all these guys, Ben Johnson. All right, they're a gang, and they kind of hover between Mexico and the United States around the border, trying to survive in like the 20th century, in the early 20th century, before World War One, when the West was kind of, that gunslinger way of being was kind of, going out of history or whatever, right? So it's a very violent film, and it's what probably gave him most out of all of his films, gave him the reputation as being a very violent film director, right? Um, so, but it also made him popular as well. So this one is an extremely good. I mean, if you're only going to watch one of his westerns, this is probably the one to watch. But I would watch most of his westerns. And the last one is Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, and it stars James Coburn as Pat Garrett and Chris Christopherson as Billy the Kid, and you got Bob Dylan in it. So the soundtrack on this was done by Bob Dylan, and he starred in the film as well. Um, so basically, these cattle barons hire Pat Garrett or Coburn or whatever to go hunt down Billy the Kid. All right, and Billy the Kid and Pat Garrett were friends at one time, so that's what he does. He goes down, hunts down the younger Billy the Kid, and so it's a pretty interesting film. And you get to see Bob Dylan in a film, which is kind of cool. All right, so those are the four films that are in the Legendary Western Collection, Sam Peckinpah's The Legendary Western Collection. Now, I'm going to show you what I do. Okay, I want to show you what. Okay, so this is not one of the the boutique labels box sets. That thick hard cardboard that really holds together well and stays together well. Well, this one isn't that. This one is like flimsy cardboard, right? So the only way you can protect this cardboard from getting destroyed over time on your shelves is to put it in a plastic bag, right? So if you don't, what happens is this guy had this and he didn't even open the fourth film yet. He only had time to watch the first three, I guess, before he decided to get rid of his film collection. And so I guess this has been on his shelf for a while. I'm not exactly sure what the date of this set came out. All right, but look at it. See, that's what happens to box sets if you just leave them like they are, especially with the flimsy cardboard. So what you need to do, all right, I have so many box sets, right? You're going to pick up box sets, whether they're Blu-ray or DVD, and even if they're the strong ones that let's say Indicator comes out with. Indicator has some really great, film noir and other stuff that they put in a really thick cardboard, hard cardboard box set, like William Castle's films, right? There's like, I think there's 3 volumes of it with like 4 films in each one, and they're really, really nice, all right? And you want to keep them that way. You don't want them bang. So even if they're really hard cardboard, you should still put them in plastic. You want them banging against the corner of your bookshelf, or when you're moving them around, um, have them scratch the bottom of it. But mostly when you take them out and put them back, you're going to hit stuff and you're going to dent. And the Indicator ones are very colorful and they're very beautifully made. And you chip them, all right, or you tear them, and they just don't look good. And this is what happens and it's a lot more easier with these kind of flimsy box sets, right? So this one this one looks like maybe these things were out a bit when the guy pushed this inside, and it bent, and it pushed this corner in and a bit of that corner, right? But overall, same thing on the bottom is falling apart. All right, it's coming out just from picking it up and taking it off the shelf or whatever. The weight of the Ford DVD cases is pulling this down and off, right? So what you need to do is you need to put it in a plastic bag like this. Okay, so here's one, all right, that will fit it, all right. So if you give me 30 seconds of your time while I put it in, all right. Now this one's almost like a perfect fit, all right. But usually you won't get a perfect fit except for the 6 inch by 9 inch bags that you can get, and they will protect your Blu-rays and your DVDs like your regular ones. They fit perfectly for that, right? So here it is. It fits really good inside. All right. I'm not sure if you can see this. Can you see this? So these bags, all right, they have a strip to them that underneath is a sticky glue. And what you do is you take it off, and then you fold this over like that. All right. And there you go. Now it's in the box, all right, and it's protected, but it has these tails sticking out all the time, right? Do you see that? See the tails? So what you do is you put it in tightly, you get the air out of it, and you close it. Now because the bag fits, it pushes pretty much all the air out of it already, but you can like do this or whatever to get the air out, all right? And then you just take some uh, tape, all right, and you fold it, and you tape it, all right, and you fold it, and you tape it. You do the same thing to the other side. Fold it, tape it, fold it, tape it. All right, so there you go. Now, usually most people will put it on the advertisement side, right? So there it is. That's what you'll see. But you can put it on the side too if you wish, right? And it looks new again, but the problem is that the damage to the corners. But with the plastic bag, it kind of covers it up and makes it look nice on the shelf. Does that look nice? Right? Now, I only did this as an example for you guys. Because I'm going to transfer them onto my computer, right? So I'm going to take this bag off. Now, when you have a bag that you do use tape, sometimes you'll wreck the bag and you'll need another one. But each one of these bags is like a nickel, maybe at the most a dime that you can get off Amazon. They're acid free. I can't pronounce the poly whatever it's called. Maybe you can pronounce it. And anyway, so it'll protect, and none of this will turn brown. All right. So it'll brown or rip or whatever over time. So you may, when you take it out to watch the films, you may need to get another bag and redo this, but like it takes 30 seconds, right? So now it looks really nice. It can go on my shelf. What do you think? Looks good, right? All right. So those are basically the 4 films. I got a Sam Peckinpah box set of 4 of his films on DVD, and one, two, three, four, five, six CDs, each for $2. And this was $6. Yeah, it was $6. Um, but thank you for joining me. If you like it, leave a thumbs up. If you have any comments on what I've shown you, do you think Nick if you know Nick Drake, do you think he's as good as I say he is, or as good as most people think he is? At least everyone that I speak to about him. If you haven't picked him up, you should pick him up. All right, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Nina Simone being the greatest female jazz artist of all time. What do you think? Do you think that's true? And Sam Peckinpah, one of the greatest Western film or just filmmakers in American cinema. His his uh, his tendency towards violence makes his films a little bit more interesting to watch, kind of like um, Paul Verhoeven in the 80s and 90s with his films like Starship Troopers or Flesh and Blood or all these. He's kind of RoboCop. These kind of films kind of are just a little bit more violent than other films that you've seen at the time, right? So you can tell that he goes, okay, you could have shot that in like 5 seconds. The guy shoots you once, but no, boom, not boom, and you're down, but boom, and then boom, 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 boom. Just over exaggeration of violence, right? That's what that's what Verhoeven became known for his films in the late 80s and 90s or whatever, right? So same thing with Peckinpah, right? Anyway, so that's it. These are all going on the shelf, or I'll be trying to sell them since I have a couple of these things already in my library. And that's the end. And thank you for watching. And I'll talk to you again in the next video. Bye for now.